We thought 15 minutes tonight, but that's not going to happen now.
It won't take long.
We got about 15 seconds or so. Ready?
Sure.
I'd like to call to order the Green Lake Township Board of Trustees regular meeting, December 10th, 2024 at 5:30 PM. Judy, can you do a roll call, please?
Kramer, here. Radke.
Here.
West.
Here.
McDonald.
Here.
Merrick.
Here.
And Biganowski.
Here.
Biondo is excused.
Thank you. At this point in time, if you have any smart devices or anything that makes noise, if you could put that on vibrate or silent, it'd be greatly appreciated. With that being said, please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. With that, the next item would be the approval of the agenda. The board members have any additions, deletions to the agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Wait,
Waiting.
the agenda. Under postponed business, shouldn't we have easement for the trail, dental, shoot, I can't think of the.
Medical or dental and optical?
The dental, I can't think of the name of it right now. And the HRA, Judy said she was bringing them back to this means, this.
Once
Delta
we have,
Dental.
once we have the information.
We don't have
We
the
haven't had the information
Well,
yet.
we don't have any of that. What
Correct.
about the easement? Did we get the?
Nope, we don't have that yet either.
All right,
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
second.
We got a motion by Merrick, supported by West, to approve the agenda as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carried. Thank you. Next item is the approval of the consent agenda. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite business by grouping controversial items together to be dealt with by one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such request will be automatically respected if any item is not removed from the consent calendar. The action noted, receive and file, or approval is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar. Is there any member of this board wishing to remove item of the minutes of 11/12/24, 11/20/24, the treasurer's report and bills? Any member of the public? Any member of staff? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We got a motion by Merrick, supported by Baganowski, to approve the consent agenda as presented. Roll call, please.
West.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
Merrick.
Yes.
Biganowski.
Yes.
Kramer. Yes. And Radke.
Yes.
Who's Kramer?
At this point in time, is there any declaration of conflict? Does any member of this board have a conflict with any item on our agenda? Hearing, seeing none, we'll move on to the next. Under reports, we have our auditor here, Mr. Trent Mulder of UHY or UE. If you would like, sir, please rise, go to the podium.
All right, thanks for having me tonight again, appreciate it. As Marv said, my name's Trent Mulder from UHY in Cadillac. Did the audit here in October and touch on a few of the highlights as I'm going through it tonight. Let me know if you have any questions, I'll take those as I go. I think Sherry might have a couple for me. So with that, we'll get started. I'll have us start on page 1. About just after the table of contents, the independent auditor's report. It's a 2.5-page report where I give my opinion on the financial statements. The township received what we consider to be an unmodified opinion. That's stated in the first two paragraphs, not explicitly, but stated there. There's multiple different types of opinions that you could receive as a governmental entity. We want an unmodified opinion, and that's what the township received. So, important letter, important part of the audit, and hats off to those involved for the unmodified opinion once again. With that, I'm going to have us flip ahead to page 19. So page 19, as you're flipping there, page 19 and 20 actually are, is the income statement of our four, what we consider to be major funds. We evaluate all the funds into categories of either major or non-major. You have four major funds and several non-major funds, which we'll talk about later. Those are aggregated on page 20, but we'll get into a little bit of the detail on that later. But on page 19, how this is set up, we have our revenues at the top, expenditures in the middle, and then basically the change in fund balance towards the bottom. That's where we're going to start our focus. For the general fund, as you can see, the third line up from the bottom, net change in fund balance for this year was $66,999. Last year, that number was a negative $3,140. So we had an improved performance from a financial standpoint this year. Revenues were up about $40,000, so not a ton, and expenditures were down by about the same amount. You'll notice just above that net change in fund balance line, there's a transfers in and out. We had a transfer out of $29,980, which was to cover for the village roads, which we've talked about in the past. So that covers that debt payment. I think we got one more year of that, and we'll be done. But obviously, that $66,000 is figured after that. So without that $29,000 or $30,000 transfer out, your number's closer to $100,000 of positive in the fund balance change. So. One of the metrics that I give, it's not a perfect metric, but I like to give it anyway. This is about the best we have to work with, is a fund balance percentage as a percentage of your operating expenditures. That number's 40.77%. As I've mentioned in the past, you've got to go quite a ways without any property tax revenues, about half the year, so you need to have a buffer there. You may ask what that perfect percentage number is. I don't have an answer for you. It varies from township to township and fund to fund, quite frankly, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But I think that's pretty good. I think that's a pretty good spot to be. I wouldn't necessarily, if you asked me if that was too high or too low, I wouldn't be able to tell you if it was too high or too low. I think it's right where you need to be for all intents and purposes. So
hang on a sec. So go back to page 16.
16, yes, sir.
That's normally where you tell us what that percentage is. And are we using that number 628,565? Is that the number you're applying to get the percentage?
Yep, and that same number shows up on page 19. We started the beginning of the year with 561 and we ended at 628, 565. So those numbers do match. At the bottom, page 16, that fund balance number that you referenced, and that same number is on page 19 at the bottom. Yes, that is the number that we're using, and we basically just take that and divide it by your total expenditures for the year, which is the 1.541 million. That's noted on that page 19.
It was 32% in 2023, so we're at 40 now.
Yep, you're increasing. As your fund balance goes up, and it's not only necessarily your fund balance going up, but it's also the fact that the expenditures went down. So it's almost, you got two things moving in the right direction to improve that percentage from 32 to 40. If all of a sudden we drop 100,000 more of expenditures in there, obviously that percentage is going to go down. And it varies from year to year, again, depending on capital items. For example, we go and spend significant amount of money on some capital items. It may inflate a fund's expenditures for the year, even because they're included in those operating expenses, even though they're really not operating expenses. Again, it's not a perfect metric. You could peel some layers back, but it's a metric that we can kind of use to see where we're at every year. So 32 to 40, you can see the growth and the movement in the right direction.
As long as you're on that page 16, what's that 175,299? Where'd that come from?
Due from other governments.
Yeah.
Primarily what that is, and Sherry's referencing up under the assets, the third line down, due from other governments under the general fund. The state of Michigan pays the sales tax revenue, well, we call it state shared revenue, but it's essentially the sales tax, a portion of the sales tax that the state collects that they kick out to all the units. They pay that in arrears. So we're actually receiving, when we receive payments in August and October or July and September, I can't remember exactly the months that they come, but there's 2 payments that are coming after June 30 that are actually for, like if the township ceased to exist on June 30, I've never had that happen, but we would still get those 2 payments subsequent to year end, even if the township no longer existed as of June 30, if that makes sense. It's essentially an accounts receivable, if you think about it from a business standpoint. The revenue's been earned and we're entitled to it, we just haven't got a check from the state yet, is essentially what the majority of that money is. Good question. Any other questions before we move forward? We're going to stay on page 19 for the moment, and we'll slide over 1 column to the Public Safety Fund. We'll again start our focus towards the bottom. Net change in fund balance was a positive $208,347. It's good to see last year, if you recall, with the building and everything going on there, we actually had a decrease in fund balance of about $475,000 from the year before. So not as much capital items going on this year, and we're able to bump that fund balance back up. The percentage on that is 66.52%. I'm not going to give that for every fund, just those 2 primarily. Again, as I mentioned before, it varies from fund to fund. I think the number needs to be higher than, for a public safety fund, I think it needs to be higher than the general fund, and mainly because you have a situation where you've got a lot of capital items, and those capital items are not cheap from time to time. You've got a fleet of vehicles, you've got equipment needs, various things like that are going to pop up from year to year, and it can wipe out a lot of fund balance in a hurry. So typically on these fire funds or EMS funds or public safety funds, you're going to see years where we accumulate, and then we go down, and that happened last year, and then we kind of start that process over. So I know you guys have a plan to replace equipment needs and things, and it's good to have that fund balance growing. So any questions on that public improvement fund or public safety fund? The capital improvements fund, which is the 3rd column there, not a whole lot of activity there. I mean, we had $23,000 of interest. We had $73,000, which I believe was related to a roof project, a roof replacement, and those are really the only 2 things. You can see we had a $50,000 decrease in fund balance, started at 536, ended at 487 roughly. Pretty good interest there, which is nice to see. And then if we flip to page 20, moving forward, that debt service fund, you can see we had $240,000 roughly of revenues, $170,000 of debt service expenses. I believe I talked to Marv about this in my exit conference with him. We want to watch that and make sure, we're not collecting too much. And I think Marv has a plan based on our conversation to, pay down some of that debt. Obviously, the debt service fund isn't meant to accumulate resources in theory. You're levying a debt millage on the residents of the township to pay for the bond that was passed several years ago. So we want to just, ultimately, it's going to work itself out. You're going to lower mills, and you're going to try to get that to a break even of 0 at the end when the debt's paid off. But you don't necessarily want to build that up too much over time. But that's something to keep an eye on. Obviously, taxable values have a big factor on that. If the taxable values go way up and we're levying the same mills as we've always levied, we're going to collect more, and those debt payments don't change. They're static forever. So that's something to keep an eye on. Any questions on page 20? So that 5th column, that non-major governmental funds, that details in the back, and we'll talk about that here in just a quick second.
So Trent, on that debt service, if we have a lot of properties that sell,
Yep.
will that cause issues with the mortgage companies or escrow companies wanting to close that out so that that's not a running debt on that mortgage or that property?
That particular debt, that particular fund will not have an impact on that. That is a mills that are levied on the property regardless. It's not a special assessment,
Okay.
which is what you're kind of referring to, and that's where we've run into problems before with, for example, with the village roads. We're expecting to collect interest on those special assessments over the course of time to help us pay the interest on the debt. And when those get paid off or they get sold, those special assessments get paid off immediately, and therefore we don't get any more interest, and that potentially causes
So
problems.
this isn't gonna be like that,
This
where we
is
gotta
not.
worry about
This
that
is-
and have a cushion.
Somebody buys a property, quite frankly, it'll probably help it because a lot of times it'll become uncapped, and then you're, get more
Okay.
tax dollars, so.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, flip over to page 22 real
Stop
quick.
at 21.
21, okay.
Down at the bottom of the column, if we had $15,457 interest at the beginning, and at the end, we're down $14,653, what happened?
So,
30 grand.
actually, it's just the change this is a little bit weird. I would not get lost in this page here, on page 21. This is basically has very little relevance to anything in terms of the township or making any decisions. This is a reconciliation page to get, this is gonna get confusing. I don't know how much you want me to dig into it, but basically all that's saying is, so at the full accrual level, which is typically we don't talk about because you don't make any decisions based on full accrual accounting. But for full accrual accounting, we're required to record accrued interest on any of your debt. So as of June 30, you have accrued interest that could potentially, will be paid shortly after June 30 at some point, or maybe it's months, it could be, whatever that, say the bond payment's due in October, for example, and you just paid it in May, which is a typical schedule. You've got 2/6 of your next interest payment that we typically call accrued interest. So on that bond, for your purposes, all you really care about is when are we making the interest payments and how much is it going to be. But governmental accounting says we have to present full accrual, which includes all your debt and all your assets that you own that are in the ground and everything like that, which again, you don't make any decisions on. So basically all this is saying, Sherry, is at the beginning of the year, you had 15,000 of accrued interest, and at the end of the year, you have 14,000. So that change, if you add those two, if you take the positive 15 and the negative 14, the difference between those two is like $1,500 or $800 or whatever that math is real quick. That's really what we're showing is just the change. It's only an $800 difference from one year to the next.
Okay, it's not the 30,000.
But I would not get lost on page 21, or there's a similar page on 18 that are essentially irrelevant. Required but irrelevant. I like the questions, this is good. Page 22. Page 22, 23, 24 are the water and sewer funds. We combine those. Page 22, only thing I want to mention on that is towards the bottom, second and third lines up from the bottom. You can see kind of unrestricted sewer and unrestricted water. If you were to ask me, what do we really have to work with in these funds? Again, this is a little bit of another type of accounting, quirky accounting rules. But basically, if you were to say, what do we really have to work with? Those are the numbers I'm pointing to. I'm saying we've got 107,000 to work with in water, and we've got 43,000 to work with in sewer. And sewer, just for reference, is Bush Road and Strawberry Point, and then the water is just the water. Page 24. Page 24, this is the same water and sewer fund, but what I want to point out here is where we kind of started cash and where we ended. So we have cash and cash equivalents beginning of the year, which is right in the middle of the page, 141,736, and we ended the year with 168,904. So our cash for the year in total went up about $27,000, which is really, the best indication that you can have on any of these, on the water and sewer fund is how we're doing, is look at the cash. It's not the case necessarily for general fund or some of the other funds, but water and sewer, we typically follow the cash, and the cash flow is positive. Now, it's not to the point, again, I'll go back to the idea that, some of the infrastructure and those repairs and improvements, you blow a line or something, that's, you're going to watch that unrestricted fund balance that we just talked about on the previous page disappear in a hurry. So I'd like to see that the cash is moving in a positive direction, because I think at some point we'd be kidding ourselves if we don't think that there's going to be some repairs that are going to be necessary on that system in the future. So I like where it's at. I think it's operating as it's intended, and the performance of the water and sewer portion of the township is fine with me. So, any questions? I'm going to skip a lot of pages. Probably, the audience is probably not going to be disappointed with that. Page 45 and 46, if you've got some questions in between there, Sherry, let me know.
Yeah.
I figured.
Page 30,
Page 30.
yeah, the overspend at the bottom. That is directly related to the report you wrote out to us then?
Yes, so those are some of that's your budget, that's the line items that were over budget, basically.
And basically, all we did was we didn't add money to those accounts throughout the year as they got spent out, right?
Yep, and most of them, were very small overages, as you can see. I don't have an issue with small overages, and quite frankly, I don't have an issue with overages in general. Small overages, to me, typically means that we're using the budget as it's intended. If you were to come here and say that, your budget for township board, for example, was $700,000 just because you had it, and you knew you were gonna come under it, well, that's meaningless to me. The fact that we're over budget by potentially, like I'll use supervisor, for example, is over by $2,800 on $90,000. That's not really a huge percentage. You're close. I would rather you be close and over than set some artificially high budget and basically make sure that you're never going to go under it, because at that point the budget's a meaningless tool to the board and to the public at that point.
Okay.
So you are over
Gotcha.
budget in all these items. There is a couple that are probably a little higher than I like, and I know that Marv likes and Judy likes based on our conversation with them. But yes, that will come up later in the report as well.
Okay.
$45 and $46.
Sherry's still looking.
All right.
Well, I'm there.
All right. I like it. So I'm not gonna spend a ton of time on 45 and 46, other than, you can see, there's five funds on page 45, and looks like 7 on page 46. I guess I'll do a blanket statement on all these. Pretty minimal activity for the most part, minimal/normal activity. You've got some of your special assessments funds, for your roads or for the lakes, various things going there. I really have nothing to speak about there in terms of the performance. They kind of all went as I anticipated. So unless there's questions on those, I just wanted to mainly point out that that's where the majority of your other funds are. And the far total column on page 46 is what was on page 19 when we were looking at that earlier, so. Last page of this report, page 48, is the DDA. DDA had a change in fund balance this year of $65,267 to the positive. Ended the year with $224,000 in fund balance. Property taxes that they're capturing continue to go up. So I think that there may be some plans to spend some of that this next year, I believe, but at this point, the DDA is in pretty good shape, so. Any questions on any of the numbers or anything gone over so far before I hit these two letters?
I want to ask on the DDA,
Yes.
because it was a question that was in my mind. Because they've acquired so much money sitting in that account, can they just go on and do that? Because DDA was created to do things to the area that they created. It isn't just an account that they can just keep making money without doing it, isn't it? Is it the state will eventually come back and say, why aren't you doing something with this money, right?
I've never seen that. I've never seen the state get to that point. I think the intent of the DDA and the reason behind it is to, add things to the community and that it's operated in. But I think it's, it's still in its fairly infant stages, I would say, in terms of its life. I mean, 5, 6 years ago, I don't think that there was any fund balance, or it just maybe just
Right.
started 5 or 6 years ago.
Well, it's older than that.
So I think DDA's, this amount of money, I wouldn't say by any means is nearly too much. I've had DDAs with millions in the account just to try to, and that might be too much, depending on the size of the community. But I don't think at this point, and to your question, I don't know that the state will ever come and take that money from them. I mean, that's property tax money that's been, set aside. And the DDA can essentially do what it wants with it. I think the intent, again, is to add value to the community and
Right.
by using those funds, but it's not in any danger at this point of being confiscated
Okay.
by the state. Did you have a question, Dave?
Yeah, on page 5, you say the township maintains 16 individual government funds. Last year we had 20. What 4 got whacked?
So we whacked a few. That's a good question. I know one for a fact was the ambulance replacement fund,
Yeah.
which had like $1,200 of a residual balance that we just cleaned up. The other one that was whacked was the
Fire
the
station.
Cornelli, I think, funds
Rose.
it's in his own separate fund, and that was used up. On top of that, there was a bond, the fund that held the bond funds, that originally, when all the bond money came in, that one is no longer because that's been exhausted.
Then that fire.
The fourth
the-
one?
The fire one that we had to keep the holdings in before, when we were building the building.
Yeah,
That was that one. I think the fourth one was the library fund,
Yes, we
it was either
changed.
that or the Parks and Rec fund. One of those, the library fund might have been a couple years ago where we
Yeah, 'cause that was
basically
for this
moved the-
building.
You call it
Move the
Golden
money.
Fellowship.
Yeah.
Library, not
Yep.
the other-
Correct.
Yeah, and then I think the Parks and Rec Fund actually got exhausted last year with some of the park stuff that was going on, so rather than continue to use that, it's absorbed in the general fund at this point, so. Any other questions? All right, so you have 2 letters with you, I'm assuming. I'll start with the easy one first, which is the independent auditors. It's the three-line title, Independent Auditors Report on Internal Control. There's 2 comments here. First one starts at the bottom of the first page. This is the same comment that's been in this letter for the last forever. Basically saying that you've outsourced the preparation of the audit to me. I've probably mentioned this in the past. Some larger cities have internal audit committees that actually prepare the audit, and then the auditor walks in, they hand it to them, and then they leaf through it and make sure it looks good, and do their procedures and issue an opinion. All the audits I do, basically, we do it, so that's not abnormal. The second comment starts on the bottom of the second page, and that is related to the unfavorable budget variances, which we talked about already. That is noted there. There was the one related to the township board that rose to the level of a material, what we call material budget overage. So that's noted there. Talked to Marv a little bit about that, again, in the exit conference. We thought maybe we missed some budget amendments at one point or another in the minutes, but we kind of went back and made sure and had him do the same, and we didn't find any necessarily where they had been approved. So that is just noted there as a budget variance, so.
Yeah, so we were going to take corrective measures in that regards is come middle of May, we were going to keep a magnifying glass on the expenditures and do some anticipation and adjust the budget in June if need be. We're going to try to keep it on track, but when we start getting bills that are due and payable in June, May, June, but we don't get the invoices and that until August, that's kind of hard for us to adjust, and I don't want to put $100,000 in each budget center because I want it to be realistic so we can operate, know what it actually costs rather than.
So Marv, does
Pat.
our accounting system track month to month? Is it that close so you can?
We can, we've worked with BSNA, there's some other changes that we got to have implemented by,
So the budget's
February
in
21st.
there, so you can
Yeah.
monitor that.
but we can't adopt that budget until we get this. So we're usually 4 or 5 months behind to roll it over in our BSNA software, because we don't want to end the other audit in case we have to do adjustments. Is that correct, Trent?
Yep, yep.
So until we get this, then we can hit final, which can't be touched again. So,
The other thing that Marv alluded to that does cause issues, and you've got enough going on here where it makes a difference, and it's difficult, right? So, like Marv said, so when we, as part of an audit, when we get there, if we, what we do is we look at all the expenditures or all the checks written in July and August, September, which is 3 months after year end. And if any of those checks that are written are for services or anything provided before June 30, we pick that up as an expense and move it back, even though you haven't paid that bill or approved to pay that bill until July, August, or September. It's an accounts payable, essentially. So if I came and did a bunch of work in June, on June 15th, and I don't get around to sending you a bill until July, but I say on the invoice that this is work done for the township on June 15th, that goes into this audit, regardless of when you pay it. So if you look at the financial statements for the general fund, we have $60,000 of accounts payable. It's very difficult for Judy and anyone in her office to keep an eye on, you know, I mean, there's bills coming in all the time, but when we look at everything, we're pulling those back and making sure that they're an expense in the proper period. Whereas the budget situation, like, you know, if you even look at it in June 28th or whatever it is, and you say, hey, let's print off the budget, see where we're at. Do we need to do any amendments? Well, you may not catch some of those because those bills haven't even shown up in the mail yet on June 28th. I mean, I guess if you knew that, hey, so-and-so did some excavating work down the street for us, we should have that bill. What is it? It's supposed to be about $50,000. I guess you could estimate it. But that causes problems. I mean, it's an unnecessary or a necessary evil, I guess, of the accounting, of way the accounting system works. So it's difficult to work with in a budget standpoint, but and I'm not saying that was the reason for all of them or all of it, but I think that definitely had to play the factor.
yeah, and we could do better, in my opinion, I could do better in that regards there and be able to work with the clerk's office, treasurer's office, more on a day-to-day detail when it gets the last quarter, to make those adjustments on paper, so Trent doesn't yell at me.
Again.
All right, last letter is the communication with those charged with governance. My comments here start, and this is a letter I use to communicate what I consider to be lesser items, just things to be aware of, heads up on. Those comments start at the bottom of the second page. The industrial facilities tax is a report that needs to be filed. You have an IFT here in this township, so those are treated a little bit differently than normal property taxes. There's a form that needs to get filed. Majority of the funds go to the state of Michigan and send it to the school. So they're a little tricky. Andy being a little bit new, I think we sent the money to the school, shouldn't have been sent to the school, should have been sent to the state. So when we were here, I told him he needed to send an invoice to the school, get that money back, which I think he did, and ultimately kick the money to the state of Michigan and make them whole. So that's a little bit weird, but just something to keep an eye on. Yeah,
So this is not filed by the assessor, this is the treasurer that files the IFT?
typically, yes.
All right.
I mean, the assessor's obviously involved with the IFT on the front end of the process, but the form is typically filed by the treasurer. I'm not to say that the assessor couldn't file it, but the monies come into the tax fund, which is, you know, the treasurer has custody of.
Well, Marv, once upon a time, our treasurer actually would give us this calculation. It was just a short quarter-page thing. I haven't seen that in a number of years, but
Yeah, I've talked with Bill, but don't get the paperwork, but we can bring that paperwork forward, because that IFT is getting ready to expire, I believe. 'Cause that
Okay.
was a 12-year.
Likely it is. You've seen a lot more of them expire and
Well,
very few of them
yeah.
being issued, so.
the cherry growers one that,
Yeah, then Matern got it, then Matern sold it to Go-Go Squeeze. Transferred that over.
Yeah. And once that's gone, then the whole thing will be a moot point at that point. But
Correct.
it is a requirement to file. It's a fairly simple report. I think you can print off the the tax notices and complete that report and make sure the funds. The tricky part is that historically, you know, it says right on the bill, it says this is going to the school. Well, it doesn't go to the school. It's just it's a weird quirk with the school funding. They don't get credit for the IFT. The state pays them at that point, so.
When does it get filed?
July.
It needs to be filed by July 31st.
July 31st.
Yep. Oddly, the form doesn't actually show up, and I don't know if it's getting emailed to them. I'm not exactly sure, but they don't give you much lead time from the time they send you the report. A lot of times you get the money, you're sitting on it for 2 months while you wait for the report from the state to show up, and then you can file the report. So I don't love the timing of it. That's not anything that we can control, I can control, or Andy can control, but it does cause issues, for sure.
Okay.
It'd be nice if the form was available like in January, then when Andy got the money, he knows that he just handle the form right then and there, but that's not the case, unfortunately, so. Second item on the list was, there was one item from public safety billing. I think it was related to another entity that gets billed for some services that had been hanging out there for a while, so we just made mention of that to make sure we could collect those and stay up on those and make sure that we don't have any outstanding. I think somebody forgot to pay it or saw email was
Got
lost
lost
or
in an
something.
email, apparently.
Yeah, yep. So that's that.
And we do have that money in the account now.
The next item, which is on the top of the last page, the bank accounts, and I was actually talking to Sherry about this before the meeting a little bit. So the fact that you have a pooled bank account is good and bad. It's good from a convenience standpoint so that you don't have 19 checkbooks for one for every fund. The downside is a lot of times and that's what's kind of noted here, is that you can essentially borrow from each other. Essentially, you could have negative 300,000 in the fire fund and positive 500,000 in the general fund, and you would never know or have an issue because you're not overdrawn at the bank, right? You still have plus 200,000 between the two. I know there was a lot of movement this year with some of the money we moved around and earning interest in some of the interest-bearing accounts and such, some of the investments. My recommendation would be that we do what we can to avoid the negative accounts, because if you think about it, if we have a fire fund that has negative 300,000, just so that, well, let me use the other example. If we have a general fund that's got negative 300,000 in the checking, and that's being basically subsidized to keep that balance of positive by a restricted fund, like a public safety fund where we're levying mills, just so that we can earn interest in the general fund, we're essentially kind of like robbing from the public safety fund, because we're using their funds to keep the checking account basically positive, and we're taking money and putting in the general fund that we really don't have and earning interest, if you follow me. I think the interest should follow where the funds are. I have no problem with the interest, but I just don't think that legally, I can't find anything where this says this is not legal, but logically to me it just doesn't make any sense. So I would just recommend that we try to avoid the negative balances in the pooled checking account is my thought. So that's my recommendation, and that's why the comment's in there.
Well, that goes to your next item, the same. Don't every bank statement get reconciled every month? Isn't that supposed to happen?
Yeah, they should be. Yeah, every bank account should be reconciled every month. And Andy's done better. I think Andy, as my comment said, I think he understands a little bit. He's gained a better understanding on those bank reconciliations, the process, kind of why they are important. And there was one investment account, I can't even remember which one it was, but it didn't get reconciled. And I don't even think it was set up in the system to be reconciled, quite frankly. It had been some money that's been pretty stagnant in one of the investment accounts that just wasn't getting reconciled every month. He's got a nice process with a sheet that he checks off and makes sure he does all of them. I just told him he needed to add that to his list and make sure it gets
All
reconciled.
right, so
moving forward.
I have no way of knowing, because I don't even know to ask, but, I mean, is he doing it 80% of the time? Every month they're getting reconciled? Is it worse than that? Is it worse a year ago than it was 6 months ago?
It's definitely better than it was 6 months ago, I will tell you that. There's been some improvement. They were all reconciled when I got here through June, when I was here in October.
Well, my question was, were they done timely on a monthly basis?
I don't know, I don't think that they were all done timely on a monthly basis throughout the year. We had some issues, I was here and helped get caught up a little bit at one point during the year to try to get them. The problem with the bank reconciliations, if you let them go for multiple months, it becomes a huge problem.
Was it truly there's 16 or whatever every month, or not quite?
There's not that many. There's a pooled account that houses a lot of them. I mean, I think that there's probably, what,
10?
10? Yeah. I mean, between the tax fund and the various investment accounts and things like that, but the majority of them are housed in the pooled checking
Is
account.
this done through our BSNA system or an Excel spreadsheet, or how?
It's done through BSNA.
Oh, okay.
Yep, it is done through BSNA. It should be done through BSNA. Yep, and it is. Yep. I will say that there was $77,000 of interest earned this year, which is pretty good in terms of your total. Again, that kind of goes back to my comment from before with the bank accounts. I got no issues with the interest. I just want it to go to the right accounts, basically, get allocated to the right accounts. So I think you've got the funds to make some interest, and Andy did that. I just want to make sure we kind of understand the interplay between the funds and making sure we're taking that money correctly. Other item there is the budget. It's just noted there again. We've already talked about the budget a couple times, so I don't need to talk about that. And then the last one I see is on the agenda for tonight with the final ARPA expenditures. Just wanted to make sure you were aware that those needed to be obligated by December 31st, 2024, which it looks like based on the agenda for tonight that'll happen. That was the last comment there. So any final questions for me? You guys made me work tonight. I like it.
Yeah, should you do these bank reconciliations, should they be done like the same day every single month? Like do it on the second of every month and balance them out and so that we have balance account?
If you're asking me when I think the bank reconciliation should be reconciled each month, I would set a goal by the 20th of every month. A lot of times the statements don't come out till 7-8 days after. I usually give you 2 weeks after that. I think they should be reconciled by the 20th of the following month. So December 20th, we should be reconciled through November.
And then that should come back as a report to us, and it can be through that 20th, or through that date.
Yeah,
after
I
they
mean,
reconcile.
you could get the bank reconciliations. It's a one-page, in theory, it's a one-page or two-page report for every month that's done and sign off on them. I don't think that's a bad procedure at all for a board to sign off on bank reconciliations.
Okay.
But that's a separate report than what you're looking at there. That's more of just like a cash.
Well, there's like 4, 5, or 6
Yeah.
here that I
Yep.
had pulled
Yep.
out, but I went to a seminar one time and they said it was about bank reconciliations and that. And what you just said, I forgot all about it, that the board could sign off on bank reconciliation each month.
I'll recommend doing it at least like quarterly at the most, or at the least, stop in and say, I want to see the bank reconciliations through July or through August, through September, whatever, and sign your name to them, take a look at them. It's not a bad practice to look at what goes through on a bank statement from time to time anyway. You can see a lot of the electronic transactions, which aren't typically, run through checks, which you approve.
Right.
So a lot of times I recommend somebody will, intermittently look at a bank statement and see what are all these things that are automatically coming out of this bank account. Because those are automatic transactions with the, press of a couple buttons on a computer that money's gone. You know what I mean?
And in the BSNA software, is it just a matter of pushing a button and it does it? Or
Does
do
the
you-
reconciliation?
Yeah.
No.
It's not.
You have to go in and,
It's not that
8 hours to
easy.
10 hours
It's
to do
not
them.
that easy. And part of the problem is because of all these the electronic transactions has made reconciling a bank account much harder. And as you know, most everything's electronic anymore. So the state of Michigan sends a payment, doesn't send us anything in the mail, doesn't tell us anything. The process is that Marv has a website that he's on, and he's like, hey, Andy, we just got $30,000 in state shared revenue, or we just got $5,000, it's election reimbursement or whatever. There's no good way to do it. And the same thing with the money going out. I mean, a lot of that stuff is money going out through electronic transactions. Everything to the IRS goes out there. So he's got to go through and make sure that all those transactions have been accounted for properly in the system. And if they haven't, there's no way your bank reconciliation will work. So he goes through every month and he's found this out. Hey, I missed a water deposit, or we missed a state shared revenue deposit. It's not recorded. Your bank rec will not work. And that's why I think it's important to do the bank recs, is because it basically guarantees that all the transactions are recorded correctly. It does, recorded. Doesn't, it might have, should have went to township board and instead it went to clerk. That, whatever, that could still happen and you could be reconciled. But there couldn't be a missing transaction if your bank accounts are reconciled.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you, Trent.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Appreciate your patience. Thank you.
It's good.
Okay, with that, I see the fire chief back there. We have your written report, Chief Case. Is there anything else in addition you'd like to express?
Yes, I had sent to the board, it got sent in the packet, was the agreement for services for Grant Township. This is a agreement, and my apologies to Dave in the title, I didn't change it in there, but I did everything place else in the document. So this is for fire, EMS, and rescue services. This is a 2-year agreement. Grant Township passed a millage proposal to help fund this. And I met Blair, Buckley, and us met with them, met with their board last month and proposed to bring this. Our current agreement with them ends the end of this year. So this would be a 2-year, would match when our renewal of our millage goes back up, and this puts it in line, basically matches what our township residents are paying for the same equal services. So this would be, I kind of went over the verbiage with the supervisor, and I wrote this in a fashion that would get us to meet next year's taxable value. So the first year that it's written is for this current upcoming taxable value that's already been submitted to the state. Next year's assessment to them will increase likely to match the taxable value increase over the next year. So rather than, we've previously written it at a dollar amount, but this would capture next year's taxable value increase for their township. So it's a little change of what we'd previously agreed to, but I wanted to capture that money that they're gonna be receiving in for their millage increase also, based on their taxable value increase. In the payment portion I put in there, so this is agreed upon, we get 45% of their township's value. I believe Blair's at 35%, and then Buckley gets 20% because we share, we split their, that's the only other thing I had for the board tonight, was just to put this to you guys.
Daryl,
Yep.
explain that math again, because it's 45% of the 3.66 mils of a separate voted-in special assessment?
So they wrote a special assessment at 3 mils, and they passed that. They're gonna fund the additional 0.66 mils out of their general fund, which is how they wanted to do it. And I said, that's fine, we're just coming, asking for them to match what our residents are paying, and it's,
All right, so this is getting calculated off their general
yep.
tax stuff.
Off their 4029, or was it 4020?
Their L 4029 form that they
L4029.
submit.
Yeah, so when they're on their taxable value, just like what we are assessed here, the millage rate's assessed at that taxable value. Of that collection of their total taxable value countywide, we're gonna get 45%.
Yep.
Of the equivalent of
Guernsey, or
3.66.
Buckley will get
Wexford.
Buckley will get
Wexford,
20, and
yeah.
then Blair's gonna get
a portion.
35.
That doesn't leave them anything to operate on, does it? I mean, that can't leave Grant hardly anything.
No, it depletes their service. It depletes everything they have because we provide 100% of their services.
No, it depletes everything they have for their general fund, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
No.
This is separate.
No,
Yeah,
They
it's a
passed the
millage.
3 mil,
All
Yeah,
right, so
so they're,
supplementing
All right, so
0.66 out of their
you
general.
get a
Yeah.
hybrid
yep,
reimbursement, basically.
Yeah.
yep,
Okay.
yep.
All right, all right.
What was our agreement with them before? What were we getting? I tried to.
About half this.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this will,
We went, I think 2.5 actually the last time.
Yeah.
I think it was, we got them up to 2.5 in our last agreement.
And they agree to this?
Yep.
I think
Yeah,
that's
we've
a
been
good deal.
talking to them that whole time saying we need to get you in line with. Now, on the other side, Blair and Buckley both asked for 4. And they agreed to come down to the 3 to matching us because Grant's like, well, we use their services the most. Why would we increase? And both Blair and Buckley agreed to the 3.66.
So I'll make a motion that we adopt or enter into the agreement with Grant Township to provide fire and emergency services, and authorize the supervisor, clerk, and fire chief to sign the agreement.
Second,
we have a motion by Merrick, supported by
Kramer.
Kramer. Okay. To enter into to sign the contract with Grant Township for the services as discussed. You need a discussion? Well, let's try a roll call on that.
Merrick,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Biganowski,
Yes?
Kramer, yes, West,
Yes.
and Radke.
Yes, motion carries. Just let me, reach out to their new supervisor and we'll get everything taken care of, chief.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like?
That's all I asked.
Very good, thank you.
Wait, I want to ask you one question. Last month, I noticed that the reports changed a little bit to us, and you used to send them out to us as ALS and BLS, and now you have this thing called ground transport instead ALS ground transport. This month, it was just ground transport. What actually is that?
Can I look at it real quick?
This is your ground transport, and this is the ALS, so this means you transported 43, but ALS was in that.
It's just gotta be a category of a box that they pulled it off. Usually we didn't have probably any BLS and they're all combined. I don't know why it separated those two off.
Well, yeah, this is for different townships that you run, or different places you run.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Thinking
assume
but
that,
I just wondered why all of a sudden we got what's called ground transport, because
Yeah.
you run them all.
Right,
I
they're all
mean,
ground.
we just run
Yeah.
our
there's
ambulances.
usually.
We don't have a
BLS
helicopter?
And versus ALS, so I don't know if it just categorized them all from just straight ground and we didn't have any BLS last month.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
all right. It's no special thing.
No.
Okay.
We're going to be able to focus the rest of the meeting with it.
I don't think we paid the heat bill. this
Did
month.
you turn it on?
I hope so. I just asked him if we forgot to pay the heat bill.
That'd be your office.
I just double
It would
checked the
be.
air conditioner, see if it was working.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see any other one from the county. Just a phone call report from County Commissioner McAllister. Currently, the county is working on their budget, and he indicated that there's been no follow-up on the dam ownership and operation until after the budget's being worked on. With that regards, I don't know if we received a letter from the county. They want us to take ownership of the Duck Lake Dam and responsibility, and, which includes the operation, but we have to get everything approved through the county before we do anything. In essence, I basically said, it's not gonna happen, as what we've discussed before, so, and the attorney says the agreement, let it ride, so I haven't heard nothing back from them.
And we were willing to help them out, not to assume all liability.
Correct.
And they want us to assume liability, and they have control over how we did it, and they're
Correct.
Right.
So, they're working on that. So, I anticipate something coming back forward because the operator is done January 31st, or December 31st. Okay, at this point in time, I don't see anybody else. Well, we're gonna break a streak tonight. Public comment. I'd ask that you rise, podium, state your name and address of residence, and limit your comments to this board, and for 3 minutes.
Greg Caskey Senior, 11717. Sorry to break the streak. First comment is the sign at the corner of 10th and J. Matty Parkway in the church easement parking lot. It looks terrible. It's wrong. I understand there's some dispute as to who owns the property the sign's on, but in the best interests of both entities, I think it would be best to have it removed, replaced, repaired, whatever. It's kind of a blight on everybody. Second comment, I've made this comment before, I know it's not within your total purview, but the fact that we have to pay taxes twice because the school system cannot figure out how to do a budget is pretty poor. They're trying to teach kids things, and they can't even control their own budget. There's no reason we have to pay taxes twice, and the clerk has to put that out at a large expense for the minimal amount of money that they collect. It's absolutely ridiculous. Thank you.
Hi, Mary Beth Hardwick. I live at 5892 Sylvan Lane. I'm here as a board member for the Interlochen Public Library. I thought you should probably get an update on how things are going since it's been a while.
Oath of office. Sorry.
Oath of office will occur. Everything's going well. We're going into our 8th year in the new building. We are within budget every year. Last year, we had 802 programs that we gave out for the community. That averages 67 programs a month. We had 14,641 people attending those programs. We had 250 children participating in the summer reading club. We bought more than 700 new children's books for the children's library. We appreciate the fact that the township supports the children's library. The Friends of the Library sent out their year-end appeal 4 weeks ago, and already the community has returned $36,000 to the Friends for the library. Lastly, I want to make something very, very, very clear. Judy, I know, received phone calls telling her that the library was banning people and banning programs.
Oh, yes, we have.
Nothing could be further from the truth. No one has been banned from the library. No program has been banned from the library. We did have a problem with one of the fitness programs, which caused us to go back and look at our meeting room policy. We found that our policy was not consistent with any other public library in the state. We were allowing fitness instructors to have community room space for free, and we were allowing them to accept donations. No other public library allows donations to be accepted by private individuals when they're being given taxpayer space for free. So we had to change our policy so that no one can accept donations when they're getting this room use for free. That made people unhappy, which is apparently what made them state they were being banned from the library. They chose to not continue at the library. Luckily for us, is that really 2 minutes?
Continue.
Luckily for us, we do have a fully certified yoga instructor whose classes have been probably one of the most liked adult class in the library. She has agreed to become an employee, so we can actually continue to offer yoga free of charge. She will accept no donations. But I wanted to be very clear, we banned nobody, and we have banned no programs. So, thank you.
And then just a reminder, can you let your board know they need to come see me?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Side note, thank you. That was very,
Yes.
I enjoy the updates. Thank you, Mary Beth.
The thing she said about whatever they were doing and taking donations, the senior, not the, it was the senior centers that was here that was doing dancing and exercise classes and all of that, they were taking donations, or they were
Public comment,
charging,
Mark.
actually.
Yeah.
And
Well, we'll save this discussion under discussion.
I didn't know, okay.
Okay, yes, we'll make a note on that.
Thank you, because it's nice to get the other side.
Yeah, I mean, it's a public, we're different because we're a public library and we're funded only by taxpayer, well, not
Yeah.
totally, because a lot of donations.
Right.
Okay. Oh,
We got it.
yep. Any other public comment? How about in the back row? No? Okay. Just checking. We'll move on to.
You don't sign sheets unless they talk, right?
Postpone business. We have none, new business. The Interlochen Downtown Development appointments. These are the members that are currently on there. We've replaced a few. I just want to ratify it in one fell swoop for Mary Jo's ability to keep track of our board terms and membership. Thank you, Mary Jo.
Is it in the packet?
Yes.
The only correction we have is there's a S, it's Bill Collin, not Bill Collins,
Or
for
Tom.
the record.
Yes, and on that, we have Brian McAllister, Adrian Woodworth, Lori Bowman, Eric Gray, Carl Fedewa, Amanda Denboer, Pat McDonald, Marvin Radke, and Bill Collin. Without the S.
So we need to approve this.
Yes.
We'll make a motion, we approve the supervisor recommendation for the appointments to the DDA as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Merrick, supported by Kramer, to approve the appointments as outlined on the December 3rd letter from the desk of supervisor. Any other discussion? All in
Christmas.
favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Other item we have is, I think this was discussed earlier, TCAPS 2025 summer tax resolution for collection. And also the Northwest we'll do one at a time. Andy, what do you have?
We have to agree to collect the taxes for them. This was sent to the clerk. Something we do every year or every couple of years, I can't remember. So I just make a motion that we accept the agreement to collect taxes and authorize the appropriate people to sign. I believe it's the clerk and treasurer, or clerk and supervisor.
To adopt the resolution as presented from
Correct.
TCAPS? Is that what you were saying?
That's exactly what I meant to say.
Okay.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Merrick, supported by West, to adopt the resolution of the Traverse City Area Public Schools annual summer tax collection.
Are we getting a raise for partial, or is it the same old rate?
Same old rate.
Same rate.
Any other
And that
discussion?
also- And
Oh,
that also covers the cost for doing the Northwestern too, right?
yes. That will be the
What
next
page is
one.
the rate on?
I don't remember reading it, that's why I mean,
Where's our resolution?
I don't have page numbers.
It's not in here.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's here. But I didn't.
It's right after,
Right after the signature page.
What you're showing me, Marv, doesn't have a rate on it.
no, that's the beginning of the paperwork.
Right. Someone point me to the rate.
I don't remember reading it, that's why I
It's
asked.
not in here. That's what I'm saying.
I think they described it as a continuation of the old one.
Well, that's no good.
Yeah, I don't see the rate.
I'm not voting on something without knowing what the rate is. We used to fight about this every year or two.
Well, we know.
You need to go to the TCAPS meeting and straighten them out.
Just why we moved it to
We
Tuesday
set
so
the
we could
rate,
do
and they
that.
say
No.
yes or no.
No, we don't
No.
have the rate.
Andy, if the rate was the same as last year, was it
It's on-
$4 and something maybe?
It's on our 4029 form that we've gotten.
I don't recall the number. I don't want to speak without
Do
having that.
they do all units of government at the same rate?
Yes,
So it's their resolution.
it's their
We
resolution.
get to accept it or not.
Yes. So with that, that's through the Grand Traverse, Leland, and Benzie, communities that are impacted, that are served by TCAPS as well, and that's on our 4029, which is done by our assessor.
I don't like doing it without a rate on it. And I'm not.
Okay, is there any other discussion on this? Hearing none? I'd interject here, then if this is the case, I would suggest that this board, prior to taking any action on this, postpone this until our next regular board meeting to answer the questions that we have here.
I'll withdraw my motion. I'll make a motion that we postpone this until the next board meeting. We can get the answers to the question trustee Biganowski has raised.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Merrick, supported by Kramer, to postpone action on the tax collection resolutions for TCAPs.
I gotta look at the other one real quick to make sure it's not.
That one doesn't have an amount.
This is the one, it's one item, so we'll continue with this one item. Any discussion?
There's some, number 2 there talks about receiving the, there's a deadline that's mentioned right at the bottom.
Yours printed.
Oh, December 31st.
Exactly.
I think what happens if we don't agree to this, and they run to the county treasurer, and they do the collection, and they
Bill us.
they take the money.
Yes.
And we didn't care unless we were also sending something out. If we didn't have our own assessments, whatever, we didn't care whether they did it or not.
Well, since we had all the infrastructure to do the collection, it was kind of like, are we just gonna let this revenue go, or are we gonna do the work and take the money? It's the schools kind of playing the two counties versus the townships, and play them against each other to reduce their expenses.
Well, at one time, didn't the county bid against us or whatever? They put out a rate, and we had a rate. And we adjusted our rate because someone wanted us to do it. I mean, if they're against their deadline and they give it to us on December 10th, not my problem.
On the other end of the thing, Dave, we've always said we were gonna collect it so that the residents can come to the township to pay it.
I don't have a problem collecting it, and then it's a standard procedure. I don't know what we're being reimbursed for it, and we've had times where we've had the clerk trying to figure it out if we're losing money on the deal or not.
Hey, it's not the clerk's office.
But I thought with the mailing, someone put together the numbers.
That would be the treasurer's office.
It's all
So you send out the bills, and again, if we were already doing it anyway for something else, we thought, yeah, we're double, what the heck? We're doing it anyway, adding them wasn't a big deal, if I recall. But I don't know.
I guess my question is, do we lose money if we don't collect?
Yes.
Yeah, it's becoming out of Andy's budget.
So you really don't want to go that route either.
We do get the 1% admin fee from, on top of.
whatever's
per-
collected.
Mm-hmm.
Which is about $98,000 this year. Or last year.
But that's on regular property taxes. Oh,
We get that for this rate as well. If we don't get this, we lose 1% of what, to offset the expenses of what's being sent out,
you
in
vote for
theory.
it then.
Okay, I'm gonna withdraw that other motion, put the first motion back on to adopt the resolution presented by TCAPS for the collection of summer taxes in 2025.
I'm gonna second it again. I think we should do it. But I am, the
Thanks for
letter,
pointing that out, Pat, about the date. I missed that.
the letter here says that they passed this resolution on January 8th, 2024, and we're just now getting it. That's a bit much.
Looks like it was mailed on November 11th to us, which was after our last meeting.
Right.
This says it shall be forwarded to the appropriate governing bodies before January 1st, 2025. They're cutting it close.
Oh, Judy just pulled up that 2022 L429, so to show,
The same rate as it was in 22.
yes,
But that's a negotiated rate. It's on our form?
yes, it looks like it's .1881 plus the 1% admin, so. That was premised on the 4029 of 22.
You say 1.881?
I think that's what that, isn't that what that number is right there, those common numbers all through that? Extra voted and that, okay, yep.
Wasn't it just so much a parcel?
Yeah, it was $1.75 or 2 1/4 a parcel,
Yeah, it was so much
which
a
equated
parcel.
out to the 4029 numbers.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We had motion withdrawn. Motion made, motion
withdrawn, motion
withdrawn.
made, initial.
So we have a motion to adopt the resolution submitted by TCAPS for the annual summer collection by Merrick, supported by West. Any further discussion?
Just real quick, didn't we sign a contract with them that had this rate in it? We had a separate, just us and them.
Yes, it was for each township,
Right.
supplied
So
by
we- So we
TCAPS.
have that in our record somewhere. So
Yes.
if we wanted to dig it out, we could have it, right?
Correct.
Well, and it's on our L40, 29
No,
too.
but that's not a contract, that's just
Yeah.
a force.
No, what Dave is asking, there was a contract that was signed that allowed the township was able to collect started off back in the 2000, $1.75, then I think it went to 2 or 2 1/4 or something like that per parcel.
So it must have started originally back in 1994, it says?
Correct.
Is that when you would have signed the contract?
No.
No, we
That's
updated
in
the
here.
contract
And that was 8 years ago, I
in
think.
2000.
Susie was still on the
Yeah.
board when we signed.
It was in 2002 when those numbers got adjusted. That's back when we had 5 members.
Well, we're obviously not prepared to do anything different. We know what we
Yeah, but
were doing.
I can send you a copy of the contract, though.
I would like to see it.
Well, let's go back to the fact that they did that on January 8th of 2024. So that means in January, they're going to do it again, so we should, Andy, you should contact them to send us a letter for this, so we'll have it like in February or March, because they've already passed it for 2026.
I don't know why they wait till November. They always send it in November. End of November is when we get it.
Okay, I'll call the question then.
Roll call, please.
West,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Merrick,
Yes.
Biganowski,
Yes.
Kramer, yes, and Radke.
No. Motion carries, or resolution considered adopted. Thank you.
I'll make a motion, we adopt a resolution to collect taxes for Northwest Ed, formerly known as TBASD, for the 2026.
You see the second bullet point of this thing? The fee for collecting summer district taxes is included in the per parcel payment as negotiated by Traverse City Public Area Schools. Just what we're talking about. There's piggybacking. We don't even know what that is.
Do we have a second? Anybody? Okay, I'll second.
This is a 2-year contract, you saw that.
Yep. Motion made by Merrick, supported by Kramer, to adopt the resolution for Northwest Educational Services, formerly known as TBA-ISD. Any discussion? Roll call it, please.
McDonald,
Yes.
Merrick,
Yes.
Biganowski,
Yes.
Kramer, yes, Radke,
No.
West.
Yes.
Okay, resolution considered adopted, thank you. Move on to the next item, is our 2025 power plant insurance renewal. Judy, did you want to give a brief highlight on this?
Premiums are the same as they were last year, same coverage. This covers our liability, work comp, and then we also, in the email I sent to you, that shows the coverage for the cyber security.
For an additional 2,000 roughly.
I got two questions. One is, we're covering fine arts. Do you know what our fine arts are?
You got it from the library or from the school? That really cool tile thing?
That's $40,000.
That's our, no, that's our sculptures.
Your sculpture.
No, this is, okay, it says 2019, we didn't have sculptures in 2019.
Yeah, it's a broad catch-all, just like it is with land and water insurance. It's umbrella coverage for a lot of miscellaneous items that
Right.
don't quite fit the
And,
specified category.
Hey, Daryl, so we got the fire department insured for 3.6 million, is that enough? It cost us 3.3 just to build it a year ago.
2.9.
Wasn't 3.3?
Yeah, well, that was
Financing.
an additional cost. Those were for the engineering and all that others. Stop there.
We got it down at 3 point, I can't even read that.
Yeah, the replacement cost stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that enough?
Yeah.
And then Golden Fellowships at over $1 million, really? A million?
What's
Hey, you're sitting on a gold mine here, buddy.
Yeah,
$1.9 million, almost $2 million you guys are.
to build this footprint on the acreage that we have here. Because it's all encompassing of all the acreage around on the other side. Yeah, 212,000, okay, I'd go into that, but
Daryl, what do you think? You could replace that for 3.6? Just what you got?
That's just the.
just the
no,
structure.
That's just
No
the
equipment,
structure.
No trucks.
This is the white box.
Did anybody look at that? I mean, that did.
Yeah, it's pretty close. In that regards there.
Okay.
I don't think we'd build the exact same thing, or have the individuals build it.
Correct.
I said that out, you guys could hear me?
All right, that's my only comments. I'm good.
Or me.
So Judy, is cyber in this, or we're gonna do cyber separate?
All together.
Okay.
But cyber won. And when you first started talking, Judy, you said it's the same price as last year. It's not. It's an increase of about 5% from last year.
That's not what Paul said.
If you, last year, the premium started at 56,846. This year, it's starting at 59,980.
So we have a 5% increase.
Okay. And then after we get done passing, we usually pass it, and then there's something else that we forget, and then it adds on a fee for it. Can anybody think of what I'm talking about? When we're all done, it's always, and it's like I want to say like 8,000, but I don't think it's that much. That he has to insure something. Is that included in this?
Marv jacket.
Hey, where's our jacket? This is the park plan. Come on. Where's the swag?
So, yeah, before it used, we've always fell a little bit behind on the cybersecurity, because that was a moving target. It fluctuated so much depending on their interpretation.
Is it the,
It's something to do with
is it the
like,
fire department coverage like their Geico? Is that what you're thinking?
well, it's
Like an
it's some
injury?
insurance on certain employees that we use.
Yeah, so it's for the fire department. They have a
Oh.
accident fund.
Yeah.
Is that included in this fee that we have here?
No,
That will be forthcoming as well.
yes.
That comes in the January.
That
We
runs-
may have some alternates in that with that one as well, so.
That one runs February to February.
Okay. Did we have a motion?
No,
I'll
I'll
move
make-
that we sign up for power plan, pay the premium for the next year as presented with the cyber insurance.
Okay.
Do you have a number?
Yeah, let's put numbers. in.
Sherry's got,
980.
I thought Sherry said 61 something.
Yeah,
I've heard a
it's a
couple of different
2,000.
Yeah,
numbers,
it'd
so what
be
are we at?
61,980. would be what it would be with the cyber. But it only says around 2,000, so.
It's a bargain at 2,000. I can't believe they'll do that. Whatever.
So we-
Apparently Paul didn't look at the numbers because he said that it hadn't changed.
Yeah, so we have a motion by Baganowski to approve MUM, or Michigan Underwriters of West Michigan Insurance Program, to include cyber in the amount of $61,980.
980.
Is there support for said motion?
Pat did.
Yeah.
Pat McDonald, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll like a roll call, please.
Merrick,
No.
Biganowski.
Yes.
Kramer, yes. Radke,
Yes,
West,
Yes.
and McDonald.
Yes.
motion carries, thank you. Next item, the request was made by Treasurer Merrick to authorize the zoning administrator to receive funds and cash receipt funds. You want to go into further detail with that, sir?
One of the things that residents are coming in making payments to the zoning administrator, being in a different area, they've got to come down to our building to make that payment. There's other townships that have other employees who are able to collect funds and cash receipt them. We've had in the past where the zoning administrator would take some money and then would bring it down to the office. There's just a lot of opportunities for something to get lost in the fray by having the zoning administrator receive the funds and cash receipt them at the time that he or she gets them. That will eliminate some possibilities of funds.
Do you want it or you don't want it?
I do want it.
He wants to authorize the zoning administrator to be able to collect funds.
Right.
So I'll make the motion that we authorize the zoning administrator to receive funds and do cash receipting.
Isn't our secretary already authorized to do this?
The secretary is authorized, yes.
And isn't the zoning administrator going to be moving back down to the town hall?
Yes, so
So
the tax
I would-
collection hours are 9 to 5. Our office hours are 8 to 4, or 8 to 5:30. So there's a period of time when people come in for their permits in the morning and want to pay them, but there's nobody there.
Well, Mary Jo would be there once they get moved back down to the town hall.
Vacation, sick time.
So you're going to have him collect it and then him receipt it in for you too?
I don't want money being left in an envelope somewhere that's not accounted for in the BSNA software, correct?
So we have a motion by Merrick. Was there support?
I'll support it for discussion. This isn't a statutory thing. This is an employee job description thing, right?
This is the treasurer can authorize people to collect cash or take payments. His job, I do not believe, is a statutory requirement for him or her to be able to receive cash. It is though
Right.
part of
You
the,
just said the treasurer can authorize, so why do you need us?
because the board needs, I forget the verbiage, but I can make the recommendation, the board has to, kind of like or the supervisor's appointments to,
Yeah, he just wants to
With board approval.
put it in record. Yeah.
All right.
Great.
I made the motion, or I seconded it.
We have a motion by Merrick, supported by Baganowski, to authorize the zoning administrator to receive funds and cash receipt funds.
I don't like the idea of the cash receipting part. I think that's too many hands in the pot. Mary Jo, she takes the money, but she doesn't cash receipt it. The deputy or the treasurer does that. I think that opens us up for some issues, is my personal opinion. I don't have a problem with authorizing him taking the money. I just don't think that he should be authorized to receipt the money.
You mean he just
Into
keeps it
the
in a jar
software.
until you guys show up? Is that what you want?
Well,
that's my issue. If the control is not there now, would be if he takes the money and doesn't cash receipt it, the person leaves, no one knows that that money's been,
but what if
Brought
there's
in.
an error when he does the cash receipting?
then that is caught by
Or-
whom, it will show who did the cash receipting. It would show that the zoning administrator received the cash, and then that cash has to balance with the deposit then, or the check that they receive.
That's a lot of hands in your cash receipting that you're gonna have to be watching over.
Correct. But if they're taking in cash for Dave comes in to make get a permit for a shed and it's $20. And Jason hands him a piece of paper with a stamp on it, says, yes, I received your money. And then whomever the ZA happens to be at the time puts that money in their pocket, there's no trail for that, where that money came in or went. When they put it into the BSNA, it shows that they received it, how much was received, and if that doesn't balance, then we know that there's a issue, because each deposit can be created for the they call it the cashier in the BSNA reports.
Well, what about when the secretary takes money in? You're gonna trust her but not the zoning administrator? You think he's gonna pocket it, but she's not?
If he's taking it, if he's the one receiving the funds, then that takes out Mary Jo just throwing it in an envelope.
Okay.
Or the potential for that.
So are these just zoning fees that you're contemplating here?
Any of the money he's going to be handling, yes.
But it wouldn't be property tax payments?
Correct.
It wouldn't be?
Correct.
It'd be like short-term rental fees, it would be the sign permit fees, those other type of fees.
Any of the fees that go through the zoning department when he's, or she,
Then
is
how is
issuing
it
permits.
The treasurer responsible, that's just a general township.
The treasurer is responsible for all cash receipt, all funds that are brought into the township and deposit them into the accounts as per state statute.
So if he gets a check in the mail along with a zoning permit, okay, so he don't touch it, he just gives it to you, right now? That's
Correct.
the-
Or if someone gives him $20 for the permit and he stamps it and says it's been received, he then gives me a copy of that, puts it in a
So
file and then brings it down to the
if we
office.
authorize him to accept cash and he gets a letter in the mail with an application and has a check with it, is he still gonna enter it now?
He can bring it to me or he can enter it if I'm not there for a period of time.
I think it's
My
common-
bigger concern is that he's a person receiving cash, not having a trail that the cash came in and having a receipt for the resident when they do it. There's no perfect system. If someone wants to steal, they'll figure out how to do it. This just gives us a trail of where, in theory, a trail where money came in.
I assume anybody at the door would take it and log it in. Apparently not.
Yeah, no, they're cracking down on that. There's been some issues downstate and up in Marquette, so we'll try to
You wanna
avoid
take
that.
money?
Is that any other discussion? Let's have this as a roll call, please.
Merrick,
Yes.
Biganowski.
Yeah.
Kramer, no, and I'm doing that because I feel that the money should go through the treasurer or the deputy treasurer, not through zoning. Radke,
Yes.
West,
No.
McDonald.
Yes.
Motion carries, thank you. Next item on our agenda, which Trent alluded to before, we have some ARPA funds remaining, and after talking with Trent, well, that it needs to be contracted for, and based upon our discussions earlier this year, would recommend, did I find it here? We put a new roof, new HVAC into our administrative buildings. We put some new flooring in, with an understanding that the odds of us building a new structure is not in the foreseeable future or in a 10-year capital acquisition program. So went out and asked for some replacements for some of our doors and some of our windows. Here at the Golden Fellowship Hall, the window right behind me, I have asked people not to wash that window because I'm afraid they're gonna push it out. We have two windows on the south side of the building, specifically on the east side. We opened it during the August election and the window fell out. So it's locked back in. Our entry door, only one half works. The other one, we had to secure it so it would not open. down at the administrative office, the voting area, the old bays. We were not able to close the door without some persuasion. And once we did that, had a difficult time opening it because concrete fell into the rusted area and did the door jam. You sit at the desk down at the admin building, the wind from outside, you could feel better than the furnace fan kicking on. So we've made some energy efficiency, so why not make the investment for those upgrades? So we went out and had put it out on the Builders Exchange for a request. We had 3 contractors submit bids, one of which only submitted for doors. Then we had 2 other contractors come in and quoted both the windows and doors. The one that was placed on the desk was from Mitten Glass, we just received today. We did a comparison, make sure it was apples to apples, and the apples to apple cost puts BTB Glass, By the Bay Glass, at a total sum of $56,551. Side note, they were the individuals that did the doors and windows in our EMS building.
Where did you get the 56,000?
When we compared apples to apples, we removed one door. And
Oh,
that one, that
You removed the door from the BD
BTB, correct.
bid, so that put them at, how much did you say?
BTB is at $56,551.
The other guy's like at 47.
Mitten Glass is at $47,877.01.
Actually, Mitten is lower than that because he's got sales tax
Yes.
on
Oh,
both. So you got 1,330.88 on one and 753.67 sales tax, so.
It's like 45 grand then.
yeah. So, and By the Bay Glass might have done that as well, but they didn't have a total breakdown of labor and et cetera, so they incorporated it all into one.
So Northwestern didn't do the whole full bid?
Correct.
Even though we've got 2, because I got 2 and it's up like 30,000.
Yeah. So,
You went through this Northwestern and didn't have all we wanted?
correct.
Okay.
And they don't do
So
it.
it was no good?
Yeah, they won't do the other stuff.
Okay.
So it broke down to By the Bay Glass and Mitten Glass.
But, okay, before we go that route, what was the 61,433 at Memorial Park?
The road and the trail. The finishing of the road, the last half, that
Okay.
last
Did it
1,300 feet,
ago.
1,400 feet we had to do for the road,
Grading and gravel.
grading and
Okay.
gravel, and also the trail to the north.
Okay, so, and then, 30,000 that we were gonna put in for that, walking trail. Has that already been taken out of the ARPA funds?
No, the one that we did with the DDA for the
DDA.
engineering.
Yeah, that isn't gonna come out of the
No,
ARPA
well,
funds?
it can. Yeah, we can allocate that as ARPA funds and utilize the remaining funds in the ARPA account for the following projects: doors, windows, and server, laptop.
Okay.
Does
so-
that make sense? Yeah, we can sit there and.
that's- I thought that we'd put that in there as that, and that's how we were gonna pay for that 30 grand there.
Nope, we're able to do that if that's put into a motion that we utilize that 30,000 for the trails with the DDA out of ARPA funds.
But Sherry, that's backwards, because that's future stuff. This is now stuff. I don't want to allocate.
We
ARPA to
no,
fut-
we already owe that now.
Yeah,
We were gonna pay it out of general fund or any other thing in the world. Tonight, we gotta spend $81,000 or else we lose our money at the end of the month.
Well, it's 150-some thousand.
Whatever.
155. But that 30,000, we've already allocated that we're going to pay it.
It doesn't matter what pocket it comes out of, and again, I think it's backwards to do the future stuff now and the now stuff in the future. I mean,
Yeah.
this is concrete, real stuff that needs to get done.
Right, but we're looking at $45,000.
Well, I'm just talking about the 30 that you want to like throw at the.
The 30, I
Trail.
thought was coming, yeah, was coming out
Let's
of
just
the
do that 2
ARPA.
months from now when it's more gelled up. I mean.
No,
still
we got,
stuff-
we got to allocate all of this ARPA money that's left,
But
this 100,
Marv's got it all allocated plus some without the 30,000 being thrown in. So why are you gonna throw in more into the mix?
because I thought we'd already allocated that. That's
So
what
ARPA?
I'm asking.
You think we dedicated the ARPA?
I thought we dedicated the money to that trail out of the ARPA money
Okay,
already.
I don't remember doing it.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I did remember, that's what I said.
Well, it's better to over-obligate than,
Yes, that's, because we, as what Trent pointed out, we have approximately $486,917 in capital that we put aside for windows, doors, computers, those type of things.
Right,
So that's part of that. So no matter, whatever we spend all of ARPA and the remaining funds that we've obligated for would come out of the capital improvement fund.
right, I'm with you. I
Okay.
just thought we'd already designated that as ARPA money.
We discussed
we
it, but
did
it
it.
wasn't in the motion, and as Trent indicated, he relies very heavily on the detail of our motions.
Okay,
So, yes, I'd prefer to over-obligate the ARPA funds.
Well, with your computer, you kind of did that, right? If we approve everything that's on the table tonight, we're over, right?
Yes, well,
Way over.
no, because I based it upon the,
I know, BTV, whatever.
yeah,
And the other guys.
and we saved $15,000. So with that, I didn't have the opportunity to make some, but we have everybody's desktop, laptops, or whatever. We had this study, yeah, so we're past due. So would anticipate that within the next quarter, we'll be asking to have some purchase, and we were advised to discuss this and get quotes after January 1st, because it'll be, they anticipate to be cheaper. Isn't that what they said, you know, to
Yeah.
our computer people, IT people?
Well, again, let's go over like Pat says, and if you
Yeah.
throw in the 30 that she's talking about, I guess we're over.
I'll make the motion, we accept Mitten Glass's estimate or quote to replace the windows and the doors in the fellowship hall and main office, and allocate that from ARPA funds as well as the Camp Saki parking of $41,556.92, $2,600 for the AD for the park, $11,789 for the rooftop furnace, $61,433 for Memorial Park, and $38,026 for the flooring in the Golden Fellowship Hall and Administrative Building to use ARPA funds, with the remaining funds coming from, I drew a blank,
Capital.
Capital Improvement Fund.
The only thing is that's not.
so you're
we-
taking the
those we've
list that
already-
Marv gave
That
us.
we've already
Yes.
paid.
Yeah, we've already paid those. Those are just the
Yeah,
accounting
you
of
didn't
how
have
we
to
got
put
done.
those in the motion, those are done.
Then I won't put those in a motion, I just overspoke to show that we spent all the ARPA funds
Yes.
and allocated appropriately.
So
Yes.
you're going for Mitten Glass, you're
So
gonna,
Correct.
the Mitten Glass, the new total, when you take the sales tax out for the main office is gonna be $28,941.25. And for the Golden Fellowship Hall, the new total will be $16,851.21.
Marv, where's the computers in the, is that another?
It's this one, it's that color on.
Are we doing this, the computers as well?
Yes,
That was the other part I wanted to add.
that was, yeah. You guys got the
So
color
you
one,
need to
didn't you?
include
Okay.
Anavan
Yep,
And include, as well as the Anavan bid for the new computers and server, utilizing
And-
ARPA funds.
and doors and locks,
And
door locks.
the key code.
keyless
Yes,
door access.
yes.
Through Anavon.
With that, that's gonna be a software thing, just similar to what Chief Case has in his emergency services. We'll be able to utilize software, so we don't have to come in on a Friday midday to get somebody to get a key for the GFH. We can just authorize a code that can be used for 24 hours. Anyways, long story short. So we have a motion by Merrick.
Well, let's get a
Oh.
value. I'd like to see the value that he's ending up with.
That
So
the computers are, and all that is 6,000,
682?
is that an 8?
yes, that's for the server and laptop.
And Mary Jo.
And, Mary Jo's. They don't support
And then the
7 anymore.
2,021.89 as well.
Okay, so
I think that's the number.
I don't think that encompasses everything on your colored chart.
Yeah.
No, no.
6,600.
These are the ones that they said needed to be replaced, correct?
Well, they all need to be replaced, but trying to get it under contract before December 31st. And so we went through with the server, Mary Jo, and deputy to bring that number in.
So as a catch-all, his motion should say, and the remaining amount of our ARPA funds shall go to, bing,
Yes.
the parking lot at Camp Saki.
Yeah, and that's what we did to, and Sherry asked about the 30,000 for the trail.
All right, so
That was part of-
the remainder of the ARPA funds will go towards the trail as part of our $30,000 contribution to the DDA.
Correct. That, yes.
You like that?
I think that's what I meant to say.
Do you get
Okay.
that over there?
So are you seconding him?
Yes.
So we
Mary
have,
Jo,
a
did you
mo-
get that?
we have a motion by Merrick, supported by Baganowski, to authorize,
And
All the
I'll,
listed things in our packet, and the remaining ARPA funds to go towards our $30,000 contribution to the DDA trail. What do you call it, mosquito trail? What are we calling that?
that one's not the mosquito trail, that was the other
Oh,
one.
This is the other one.
Yeah. So. Any other discussion? Let's roll it. Roll call.
Bikanowski.
Yeah.
Kramer, yes. Radke.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
McDonald.
Yes.
And Merrick.
Yes.
Will you go over those numbers real well when you're done, Jerry?
Nope.
Because I come up with like 77.
Okay.
oh, before we leave
It
new
should be
business,
77,000.
no, I think Dave, are you the one that said that there was no resolution as far as those collecting the taxes for the, one of the entities?
It's not in the packet, there is one.
Oh, there is one, it's just not in the packet.
Yeah.
Okay,
Judy's gonna get us to
Yeah.
it. She said she would.
all right.
Okay, under discussion. Sherry, forgive me, but you've made a comment in regards to public comment that we were gonna bring back under discussion. Do you recall what that
Oh,
is?
yeah, I was talking about when the senior center was using this building, they were having like dance classes and workout classes and things like that, and they were charging the people for them. Is
Yeah.
that a legal thing that they can do? Listening to Mary Jane there, is that a
Mary Beth?
legal thing they can do because this,
When we charge
Yes.
them,
It was,
that makes it different than.
it was a county agency.
right, the county
Yes,
agency?
so we were getting it from the county agency, and it was a senior center, the Commission on Aging, with a subgroup of the seniors. So yes,
Right.
that was all okay according to Ward, because that
Okay.
was a question that was asked, because trying to differentiate between that and when they held church service here on Sundays, when they passed the collection plate.
Took the time.
So, yeah, that was some questions, and in that respect there, Mary Beth, thank you so much for the update and report, that was kind of nice. Thank you. And kudos on the attendance, it's discussed that your library, or our library, is quite impressive. And the next thing I'd like to discuss, perhaps we can get padding or rubber or something for the clamps,
Right.
because I'm noticing
He's on it. He's on it
these
already.
little things. Fabulous. So no further discussion. Okay, any other discussion?
You need to sit still, then you wouldn't make my mic shake.
I'm trying not to touch the table. No further discussion, correspondence? Hearing none? Last opportunity for public comment. Yes. Same rules apply, Jill? Ma'am?
Jill Coverdale, 5648 Runwood Way. Just two recommendations. I'm a CPA. I served audit, performing them, and also being involved in audits of entities that I served as an employee under. I think that it would be very helpful when the audit is presented that they do a condensed version of the report. I've never seen an audit presentation where there wasn't a PowerPoint, where they didn't go through 45 pages of the report. It would also really help the audience because we have nothing in the packet to look at when you're going through that, and that's a lengthy part of it because it would really show the highlights and what's going on. And it should include benchmarks. I would think Trent should be able to get benchmarks for things like fund balances for other like townships to know where we're stacking up. I was a little surprised by that. Secondly, for the cash or the bank recs, I would absolutely be in support of this board seeing them either monthly or quarterly at the very minimal. And I think it should include not only the actual bank statement that you get from the banks, but also what's coming off the BSNA. I experienced $1 million embezzlement that was done by an internal staff person, an internal accountant, and it involved inappropriate bank recs at Munson Healthcare. So we've got to be really careful about what's going on. And I kind of support Judy also on the who's taking in money and receipting it, because you can get some funny business going on when you don't have adequate checks and balances. So just two recommendations to think about. Thank you.
Back row. You sure?
They're sleeping.
Yes, well, they're itching to get out of here, because I think they only allocated an hour and a half, but any other public comment? Hearing none,
Should we, as far as these bank reconciliations, should we put that as an item on our next month's agenda and decide if we want to do them monthly or quarterly, or?
your request has been so recognized.
Yeah. Also, we have not heard back from the state of Michigan yet regarding the audit for the November election. Probably now not going to be until after the first of the year, after the holidays.
What do you mean audit?
We get
Word
audited.
earned.
We get audited
Election.
after each election. The state comes in and audits.
Yes. Well, with that,
And Marv, I had asked the board when I first started as treasurer what they wanted in the treasurer's report. The bank recs was not requested by the board. None has been requested. I'll include it as part of the treasurer's report. It's easy to do. I just didn't know you guys wanted to see them.
Well, we might not after the first round.
Plan for another 2 hours for the meeting.
yeah, Sherry?
Not moving furniture on the 19th of the month now. I heard they were staying down here until March.
Really? I haven't heard that.
We have to move the furniture to get the carpet in.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I know there's an individual that really would like to stay down here, but,
I think they're coming up after the first of the year.
yeah.
Okay, they're not going to stay until March.
No.
So then you're still going to be moving furniture on the 19th?
Yes.
The 19th and the
The 19th.
19th. Oh, yes.
We're emptying, we have to empty out the office.
Everything will go,
It's going to
go
go
out
into
to the fire barn, basically?
I hope not. I hope it's just going next door, but
Yeah, so we'll have that taken care of there.
All the equipment needs to move out of the fire barn. We're moving our stuff over.
Once we have it, the admin flooring done, after the first of the year, be January 2nd or 3rd, then we'll migrate.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're not going to lose an employee over this move, are we?
No,
Can't afford that.
not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Just like last time, he'll put a chair in a corner with his laptop and wait until everything's moved of his, and set up the way he likes it.
After he's been there a week, he might decide not to stay.
Yeah,
Actually, we're pretty fun.
yeah, 'cause we're waiting, he wanted to wait till after the March border review to change.
Right.
So we'll see how that plays out. Because he'd be down here solo, and we try not to have people work with one individual. We like to have at least a couple people present in the event something happens, both either from a resident or medical or whatever the case may be. That's what we've been advised by our insurance carriers. Try to keep at least two in the same building. With that, any other discussion? Hearing none, I would like to adjourn this meeting at 7:19 PM.
So moved.
We have a motion by McDonald, supported by Radke. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?